Hello there, good afternoon. It's midday and you're welcome to Newsbeat here on Metro Television. My name is Desmond Okwekudan. So we have all the stories, both local and international, coming your way this afternoon. Let's take a look at our headlines. And coming up this afternoon, former President John Mahama welcomes government's decision to begin engagement with the International Monetary Fund for a bailout. Program will bring you details on that. And economist Joe Jackson warns an IMF bailout program may come with harsh conditionalities, including public sector wage cut and layoffs. And in news from elsewhere, 5 people have been reported dead after at least 3 earthquakes with a preliminary magnitude hit the province of Hormozgan in southern Iran. We'll bring details shortly. Welcome to the program, and we're streaming live on Facebook and Metro TV Ghana, and also live on DSTV channel 277. Now let's settle for the details, and we begin with the IMF. And former President John Dramani Mahama has welcomed President Akufo-Addo's decision to formally engage the IMF with the view of entering into a program under the fund. The statement was posted on his Facebook wall this morning. Here are excerpts of it on your screen. So it says, I welcome President Akufo-Addo's decision to formally engage the IMF with a view to entering into a program under the fund. Though belated, it should mark an important step towards addressing the dire economic situation which has left Ghanaians wallowing under intense sufferings and hardships. Beyond the announcement of engagement with the IMF, a comprehensive homegrown program should be fashioned out and presented to the fund for support. It is imperative that a team of skilled and competent negotiators is put together to obtain the best set of measures with the fund. And the finance minister, who has supervised the disastrous collapse of the economy, cannot and should not be part of the team of negotiators. He has lost credibility and the trust and confidence of stakeholders in our economy. And it continues that President Akufo-Addo must take a bold decision to replace his finance minister immediately with a more assured and competent person who is willing and able to work tirelessly to turn our almost hopeless situation around. In addition, given his obvious failures, the vice president must be relieved of his responsibility as chair of the economic management team to enable the president reconstitute the team. We must draw useful lessons from this episode and avoid cheap politicking with the economy that can only yield the disastrous outcomes that have brought us here. So that is the statement from the former President John Dramani Mahama. And still on this, the Director of Business Operations at Dalex Finance, Joe Jackson, says the IMF bailout may come with possible public sector wage cut and layoffs. He warned government to ensure that demands are realistic and progressive.
Do we say that we will spend 50% of all our income on less than 600,000 people when this economy is over 32 million people? No, we can't do that. So unfortunately for the TUC, it's going to mean that what they are afraid of will come true. There'll be a freeze on salaries. There might even be some layoffs. There might even be a look at cutting salaries across board. So when I talk about pain, those are some of the things that we are looking at. The IMF announcement may bring some stability to those issues, because at least we know that every journey starts with the first step, and the first step has been taken. So it will bring some stability to the financial sector, I believe. So those who are, so this chaotic financial sector that we've had in the last few months will at least start to stabilize, which would mean that all of us can take a deep breath after all the challenges that we have faced going forward in the last few months. For the ordinary man in the street, nothing is going to change for a couple of months. The IMF program hasn't started yet. Nothing is going to change. But surely you will see the changes if and when the program starts. So I would say that for the next 90 days, nothing much is going to happen. And if, God willing, there's an agreement, you're going to start to feel the pinch after that. But bear in mind that the IMF has also learned a lot from previous programs. So there are definitely going to be program attachments that will mitigate the worst part of their their adjustment policies to the most vulnerable in our society.
Joe Jackson also disagreed with suggestions that Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta should be dismissed for leading the country into economic retrogression.
We need the best deal possible. Just maybe this present team who did not want to go to the IMF, who had to be dragged screaming and shouting to this point, who had to really see things for how bad they are, or they were before they went to the IMF, maybe they might just be the best thing to negotiate on our behalf. Because they will be going there with their eyes wide open, knowing that every single concession they make will be scrutinized and will be looked at, because we will be using their own words against them. At this moment, I have no reason to say that this team should not be part of, anybody in the present economic team should not be part of that negotiation. If anything at all, maybe the best person to make peace is the general who's been to war. Okay. We need to open the books. We need accountability, transparency to know how bad the situation is.
Right.
If you bring in another team, how are we going to be able to do that? How will the IMF get a full grasp of what our situation is? As much as you may think that this current regime may not have performed, it's not realistic to ask for another team. It's just not realistic. So as much as I can see how there's a feeling of failure and we feel frustrated and angered by how long it's taking us to get to this place and the admission that things are that bad, listen, we're stuck with this team for the foreseeable future.
Now, the convener of Crusaders Against Corruption, Emmanuel Wilson, says the country hasn't learned lessons from the past. He is therefore calling on the president to fire the finance minister for leading the country into a mess.
Its foundations or fundamentals are very weak. And so it has gone beyond our hands now. We can't do much about it.
Right.
And so we are going out to an international organization to bail us out.
Okay.
IMF will come in with conditionalities, whether we like them, it or not. And it is these conditionalities in the eyes and the views of IMF that is supposed to stabilize this economy.
Okay.
It is worrying that as leaders, leaders of this country seem not to be thinking outside the box, and all they want to do is to get to this stage where they would rather want to fall on an institution outside this country to take care of our economy for us.
Right.
Look, there hasn't been any country in history of this world that has developed based on its lineage to IMF. Mm-hmm. It has never happened. Mm-hmm. And so the question we should be asking ourselves as a nation, what exactly do we want as a nation? Do we want to develop, or we want ad hoc measures?
Right.
If this IMF thing goes on or succeeds, it means that this will be the 17th time
We're going to the IMF.
we are going to the IMF as a nation.
Yeah.
And we are still where we are. And no one seems to be thinking outside the box and be saying that, look, it is time for us to build realistic homegrown policies, build realistic homegrown policies that will let us commit ourselves to it to ensure that we develop this country as we are supposed to do. That the finance minister should be sacked. How can someone who messed up a mess be in a better position to clear up the mess? If he indeed knows how to clear up a mess, would he have led us into this mess? Right. How many years on? 7 years on. We have gotten to a stage where everything, as far as the economy is concerned, seems to be broken. Okay. Our credit rating has come down. We are no more getting sources to borrow from. Okay. And that is one of the reasons why they decided to introduce the e-levy, of which you know the position of Crusaders Against Corruption, that we are not for it.
What's some more reactions on government seeking bailouts from the IMF? And former Finance Minister Seth Terkper, however, believes government could have avoided going to the IMF if it had the proper economic measures.
No, there were buffers. The 2017 bond that was due from 2007 was either fully paid or refinanced. In fact, 200 million was left in the sinking fund for them to take it up. So there was that looming tax burden of $750 million US was settled one way or the other by the Mahama administration. The money that we took, and I didn't mention it, for the COVID from the stabilization fund, 250 million initially before we started again writing down some of what is flowing in now, which is about 400 million, was put in place by the Mahama administration. You know, remember, in fact, the ECF loan, which they criticized us, remember they never stopped the ECF. You know, so it wasn't that the NPP continued, you know, to implement the ECF after we lost in 2017. They collected part of the money. We gave the remainder of the money. In fact, we gave all of our ECF from the IMF, you know, to the Bank of Ghana, you know, to support, you know, the reserves. And then we relied on the World Bank and others to support the budget. So they took the money. When they came in, you know, with 3 oil fields, which is the other thing I want to mention, as against one, they didn't opt to say that, you know, we are a proud nation, we don't want that money. They took it, and they took the SDR. So what is that pride? We had already gone to the fund for all these resources, and yet the situation did not improve. And the simple reason is that the fiscal gap of 5 to 7%, you know, continued or was in existence in 2019 before COVID struck in 2020. Just take the article, you know, 4 of 2019, and it's there. And this was something which was agreed, you know, with the IMF. You know, between the government and the IMF. So the disease was there before COVID. We cannot blame, you know. So with all these endowments which I have mentioned, yes, there was no reason for us not to have managed well to avoid going to the IMF.
Now, whereas many have lambasted the government for returning to the IMF, Joseph Obin, who is the president of GUTA, has said it is a necessary evil for the country at this time. He spoke earlier in an interview.
Is going to give us some relief or some respite, then we will say that is in the right order, especially when they are managing the economy and they know how far we've gone to. Probably we've reached the dead end, that we don't have any option than to opt for the IMF. If that is so, then we have nothing to say than to embrace it and find out what they have on the table. For now, we do not even have the details so that we can make an informed discussion on that. But definitely, we are not expecting that we go back to the policies of old by IMF, where it has not ended as very well. We thought that we would have used homegrown solutions for our problems. And that is the same thing that the IMF is going to tell us. They are going to instill discipline on us in the way of our expenditure. And this is what we have been saying all this time, that we have to look from within. And once we are not in normal times, we have to prone down on our expenditure and prioritize our needs. And then the limited resources that we have can contain, and then we run. It's also management of the economy.
You're still watching Newsbeat here on Metro Television, and still on the IMF. Some Ghanaians have expressed their views on Ghana's return to the fund. While some agree with the government for this step for financial bailout, others think it is not a good idea. According to the latter, the country is more than capable of supporting itself.
IMF will give conditionalities. We're just hoping the conditionalities will not prevent government from employing we the youth. A lot of the youth are not having jobs. Me per se, I am not having any proper work. As compared to the time I was in the university, I was hoping that when MVP comes to power, because I voted and supported MVP because I knew they were coming to bring us from IMF. And with coming out from IMF means that we were going to get employment after university. Since 2018 up to date, no job. So going back to IMF means that we are still going to stay again with that job. That would be very bad. So we are hoping that it will, the conditionalities, employment will not be part of that conditionalities that they will take.
I think it's a very wrong idea because I don't know, say, as compared to the strength of the Ghanaian youth and the resources that we have, it's good enough for us not to go for the IMF. During Mama time, he went for the IMF. Still, there's no improvement. The economy is very bad. So I don't trust this IMF. Why? Because the scripture says, "Curse be on the one who trusts on the nation leaders." Why do we have strength? The youth are there to work.
They've already said they will not go for the IMF, but then they are going for it. It's a nice idea because the economy is struggling a lot. And it's only a fool doesn't have a change of mind. So I think it's a good idea if they are going for it. Yeah. I think they brought the e-levy so that they won't go for the IMF. But they are saying the e-levy is not helping because people are using dubious ways of running away from the e-levy. Yeah, so I think it's in the right process. They should go for it.
Now, the minority in Parliament has criticized government for delaying its decision in seeking a bailout from the International Monetary Fund. According to them, the delay will make negotiations with the fund difficult. There's more in this report.
Ghana and the IMF have been trending on various social media platforms following President Akufo-Addo's directive to the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta to begin formal engagement with the International Monetary Fund for an economic support. In several conversations, government has been criticized for making a U-turn on seeking a bailout. In Parliament on Friday, there was a heated conversation on the floor. Deputy Majority Leader Alexander Afenyo-Markin says the erstwhile Mahama administration went to the IMF due to mismanagement, but the Akufo-Addo Bawumia-led administration is headed for the IMF due to the global crisis.
When question time was ongoing, they interfered with this shout of IMF. You went to IMF when there was no crisis.
You are supposed to guide me.
Rather, the
leaders are supposed to guide me. Can you resume?
Mr. Speaker, we are the masters of our own rules. Mr. Speaker, this is a matter of urgent public interest.
Well, there's time for urgent public business.
They should not be murmuring.
Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu thinks otherwise.
The deputy leader may have aspiration to be leader, but not aspiration to be minister for finance and to be making formal announcement on behalf of the minister for finance on IMF. Ghana will not go to IMF, unquote, says Ken Ofori-Atta. What are you seeking to do? To formally announce to this house that there is now a school prophet in the IMF.
Deputy Ranking Member on the Finance Committee, Isaac Adongo, said the government will begin negotiation from a place of vulnerability since it allowed many things to run around before seeking the help of the IMF.
Unfortunately, they are beginning to engage at a time that they are not even prepared to have anything on the table for the IMF to consider. You recall the Census Consensus provided a working document through which government could negotiate on the position from a position of strength because we knew what we wanted. These guys are going to IMF at a time they basically don't have anything, no blueprint. So chances are that we are going to have a lot of the program being designed from the perspective of the IMF and not the perspective of the country. But I want to make the point that they have already started on a faulty leg. Asking Ken Ofori-Atta to engage IMF is equivalent to telling the IMF we don't want a program.
Isaac Adongo, the Bolgatanga Central MP, says the woes of the economy are due to the wrong decisions taken by the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta and the Minister of State in charge of Finance at the Presidency, Charles Edubuahi. He says the two individuals must eat the humble pie.
One, Ken Ofori-Atta lacks the capacity and is not fit for this type of purpose. Ken Ofori-Atta should be fired immediately with that communique in order to give assurance and comfort to the negotiating parties that Ghana is serious at having a program. Charles Edubuahi should follow in tow. The Ministry of Finance at this moment in time need a complete upgrade from the people who are currently sitting there in order that we have credible leadership to engage the IMF and come up with a program that is a workable program. Unfortunately, he is the same man who the president has directed to engage the IMF. To go and say what? That we are no more a sovereign country? That we are no more a proud nation? That the people who said they should go to IMF are now not naysayers, but he's now the naysayers because he has come?
Now, leaders of the Chrome Ayashi demonstration say they have been vindicated following government's decision to run to the IMF for economic assistance. According to them, although the police failed in ensuring the protest was peaceful, they will continue demonstrating across the country till government listens to their demands.
It comes a day after the former president indicated that if they don't make a U-turn, Ghana's position will not be salvageable.
Right.
It comes on the heels of a massive demonstration by the people of Ghana to drum home the sentiments of Ghanaians after a lot of public engagements. And I would like to, on this particular one, indicate that we will be speaking on the different aspects. I'll be handling the chiefs and people of Accra. Okay. Yudaya will be speaking for the concerns raised and articulated by the women of Ghana, whilst Siddiq will be talking about the Muslim community and other related issues, because we engage very widely and we intend to engage even further as we move the demonstrations to Ashanti, back to Accra, Northern, back to Accra, Volta, back to Accra, Eastern, back to Accra, Western, back to Accra, till we've done all 16 regions. If the IGP intends to arrest us, Palgrave, tell him that he should come. In fact, we made ourselves available at a press conference shortly thereafter so they would know we are around and we haven't run away. And we indicated that we're going to do it, and we did it. And we did it very successfully to prove that we were not out there to do such a thing. In any case, in the morning of the second day, we were all available. I was with the regional commander and the, the director CID operations, who happened to have been the immediate past regional director of operations, who had become, been sent there from Dansuman as a commander, where I live and work with him.
Is that
for years.
Garba?
Asante. I was with them. If the police intended to arrest us, and all the leaders were there, they could have arrested us. I don't think that the IGP has any moral justification even to stay in office. He's the one who should be resigning, not telling people who he's going to arrest.
And if you look at the second day, regardless of the state-sponsored intimidation that happened on day one, and if you look at the numbers that turned up on day two, it was quite clear that myself and my colleagues were not the only ones that were feeling the pinch. There are a lot more Ghanaians that were feeling the pinch. There are a lot more Ghanaians that were feeling the harsh effects or impact of the reckless or irresponsible governance that was happening. And so for me, I think that amplifying that and getting other like-minded Ghanaians to join us to make that a strong statement to governments and state actors, I would say it's a success. Obviously, we would have to take this on the road to other 16 regions until the government would have to hear some of the concerns that we have.
You're still watching Newsbeat here on Metro Television. We're taking a break. We'll be back shortly. Please do stay. Welcome back and thanks for staying. Now, students in Asiaon in the Sewama-Adoadjiri municipality have over 3 years studied in a church and at a defunct cemetery, while others use improvised wooden structures, among others, as classrooms. According to students, this is retarding studies and are calling on government to, as a matter of urgency, come to their aid. My colleague Shadrach Odamejai filed this report.
Schools in areas like Esiao in the Nsawam-Adoadjiri municipality of the Eastern region is a true replica of marginalization seen in rural areas. Esiao is about a 15-minute drive from the Nsawam mobile station. Residents in this area are predominantly farmers. As part of Metro TV's education series, I visited Esiao. Just as I entered the community, I saw some students sitting under sheds with palm front. I drove past them and continued to search for the Esiao MA Basic School, only to be told that the shed I saw earlier was the school I was looking for.
Education, they say, is the key to success. At this point, I don't know whether to describe the current state of the Esiao MA Basic School here in the Nsawam-Adoadjiri municipality as a success. This is class 5 and 6. Students have been merged because there is no classroom block to occupy them. Class 5 and 6 are all in this very hut.
Core of schoolwork, academic and extra curriculum for the Esiao MA Basic School happens under this shed, while others continue in this rickety wooden structure and the church. This predicament affects nursery and kindergarten and the primary school, covering from class 1 to 6. For the junior high school, this is Form 1 and Form 2. Form 3 for final year students does not exist here, as there is no space nor resources to prepare them for their final examination. Students with the requisite capacity seek their final junior high school education elsewhere, trekking long distances. Those unable to afford such journey are compelled to say goodbye to education. This is the staff common room. Teachers are supposed to prepare their lesson note and mark exercises in this space. Students here who are expected to be on the same page with those studying in the capital like their teachers have no teaching and learning materials. There are no toilets, libraries or canteen. They also do not benefit from interventions like government school feeding program. The situation, now more than ever, has gotten worse. Students are always left at the mercy of the weather. These sheds do not only host students, it's also shelter to some domestic animals. For the students, studying here is just synonymous to living in fear and despair.
Teachers from there were charity, but baby I won any. Yawahanuma, Kaka, and Suta, Yabwane, team, or walk to me back, na a better fem, na yena, Yaves Catefian, your cocoa baby atina, say, Bibia to Transana, yena, Yababetina, Asia, Emma, and Siobo, who say, every best school.
Just as the conversation went on, the rains threatened to come down. The weather suddenly got cold. Students would have to be moved to safety. The Esiao Pentecost Church was their only hope. Efforts to speak to teachers of the school proved futile as they feared being victimized by higher government officials or institutions. But what are authorities like the Ghana Education Service, the Municipal Chief Executive and the Member of Parliament, Frank Anodompre, doing about the plight of these students?
Formally, the district education, the director came here himself. He saw what we were doing, so they said they would try and help us. I've informed the MC. He also said he will do something about it. I've informed the MP. He has also said he will do something about it. So I'm just waiting for them. When the day will come that they do, because I've taken pictures sent to MC, to MP, and all those people involved. I've done that. So looking forward to maybe to help us.
Back to the school's premises, you may be looking at several stones peering through the ground. These are no mere stones. They are remnants of a graveyard. Yes, where these students are studying is a defunct cemetery. Ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all is at the core of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 4, which borders on quality education. The foundation of this goal, however, looks shaken as more schools like Esiao MA Basic School continue to study in green. These students are competing with other students from the cities. From Isiao in the Nsawam Adwejiri municipality of the Eastern region, Shadrach Odame Ejari for Metro News.
And we'll follow through on the developments on this particular one. A report filed by my colleague Shadrach Odame Ejari. Now, away from that, the Minister of Energy, Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, has justified government's move to expend a whopping $34 million on the relocation of the Ameri power plant from Tema to Kumasi. According to the minister, Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, the move will reduce persistent power fluctuations in the Ashanti region.
That he has shown. But I want honorable members to send a message clear. The Electricity Company of Ghana belongs to all of us. The only way it can provide the service we have said they should provide is for me and you to pay our obligations. It can never be accepted that you decide on when to pay and how to pay. It cannot. We in here, even as members of parliament, cannot decide how to pay our electricity bills or when to pay our electricity bills. But Mr. Speaker, I want to promise my honorable colleague that on Monday, I'm meeting the chiefs and some of the groups from Krobo. And I do invite you as a colleague, a friend, and a member of parliament, and your brother, Jakote, and I'll expect you so that we can together put our minds to this issue and solve it once and for all. Mr. Speaker, if we don't get a grip with this matter, you can just imagine which part of Ghana then should pay electricity bill. Who should pay? Honorable Bowen's constituency will come to me that they also signed an agreement with the dead president that they should not pay.
Now, the term close season, also known as biological rest period, refers to the stopping of fishing activities during the reproducing period of these stocks. Fishermen in the country are, however, calling for the scrapping of the close season in Ghana as the season intensifies their suffering and provides no benefit.
When the news team arrived at Jamestown, the fishermen who could not go fishing as a result of the closed season were, among other things, mending their nets or cleaning their boats. They claimed the closed season project has no benefit whatsoever and has rather imposed on them more suffering.
You won't pay school fees, won't pay year rent, won't pay water bill, and you won't pay what.
We pay school fees, rent, and other bills. So when fishing is closed, how do we fend for our families when we don't get income from anywhere? And this makes life difficult. We are dying of hunger even whilst fishing. How then do we survive when the fishing season is closed? We have wives and kids. How do we cater for them when fishing is on probation? Our machines on the sea can get damaged within this period.
The market women who had come to sell their last stock of fish said they would have to resort to illegal measures to cater for their children.
What at all does the sea contain that it needs to be closed yearly? There is no reason why the sea needs to be closed for a month.
Convener for Fisheries Alliance, Chei Kwejo Yamwa, however, believes a closed season is necessary for the development of the fishing business in the country.
As we speak now, Ghana's fish stock is in the marine is almost collapsed. The decline is too much. Fish harvest is all-time lowest, and fisher folks are not getting any fish. So it is a very important conservation measure to address the decline of their fish stocks. However, in any conservation measure, you would notice that the actors concerned may have some agitation.
They called on the government to scrap the policy. The closed season has no benefits to us. We want it scrapped. And so they are calling on the president to withdraw this closed season and bring in other alternatives. For Metro News, Derek Adote.
Now to the eastern region, where many students of Kwewu Ridge Senior High School in Obo in Kwewu South District have been displaced after fire gutted the girls' dormitory in the school. The students have been left devastated after the fire destroyed several items, including chalk boxes and trunks.
The cause of the fire outbreak at the Kwewu Ridge Senior High School is not known. On his visit to the scene, the Eastern Regional Minister Seth Kwame Champon sympathized with the students, teachers and staff. He promised them a completion of the old project as well as construct a new one. The regional minister, who was also accompanied by the regional NADMO director, assured them that all the necessary logistics will be provided to assist the students. He used the opportunity to urge the pupils to study hard to brighten the country's educational system. We extend our deepest condolences to all affected persons. We did not plan for this tragedy, but it happened. We will do whatever we can as a government to bring relief. The Education Director, Edwin Ofosukwache, noted some of the affected students have been asked to go home and return on Monday while the rest are managing the available rooms. He made an appeal to individuals, churches, organizations and other stakeholders to come to their aid as soon as possible. Some of the students fend for themselves. Please donate to the school if you can to bring peace to the minds of the students as they prepare to write their final exams. Multiple checks indicate that the Kwewu South Municipal Fire Command has begun investigations into the cause of the outbreak.
Still on education, teacher unions across the country have scheduled Monday, July 4, 2022 to take a decision on their intention to embark on an indefinite strike following the failure of government to pay them their cost of living allowance COLA.
This Union Congress, it is time for government to initiate a 20% cost of living allowance to all public service workers, looking at the high level of inflation in the country. This call has instigated most of the public service workers, NAT, NAGRAT and TEU, to press forward with a demand for the government to fulfill payment of the COLA. They threatened a strike by end of June 2022.
We are still standing by our demand and the deadline that we have given, June ending. Today is 29th. So Mr. Minister, this morning we are assuring you that we cannot fail our members. And we want to assure our members through this medium that as leaders of NAT, we are still standing by the deadline that we have given to the employer.
Never! We, the Greater Accra Regional Secretariat of NAGRAT, wish to add our voice to the call by the other 9 regional secretariats of NAGRAT to demand of our national leadership that if at the end of June 2022 our call for COLA is not heeded to, they should be left with no other option than to pay heed to the clarion call of our members to lay down our tools.
Speaking on Newsbeat with Annie Ifua Ampofo on July 1, the Greater Accra chairman of NAGRAT, Henry Tete Afi, noted they were yet to meet to conclude on the matter, whether or not there will be a strike.
I have not had any indication from my national leadership that government has had an engagement with them. I don't want to preempt national leadership. They are in consultation with the other unions. And so I don't want to preempt what they will be doing. But when we get to that river, we'll cross it.
However, the General Secretary of the Teachers and Educational Workers Union, TEU, Mark Granche, has hinted that the meeting has been scheduled for Monday, July 4, 2022.
Now, the Deputy Minister at the Local Government Decentralization and Rural Development Ministry, Martin Ejay Mensah-Kosa, is urging residents in media parks and gardens to regularize their document as it embarks on an exercise to claim all undeveloped government lands in the area. The minister says the call has become necessary as it is making efforts to reclaim encroached government lands in the area.
During a tour by the Deputy Local Government Minister, it was revealed that the site in question at Media in the Gan West municipality is a state land measuring approximately 360 acres. However, residents have built unlawfully on the lands, leaving less than 2 acres. Following the continuous encroachment, the ministry has engaged the services of the Gan West Municipal Assembly to recover all the encroached lands and provide protection for the sites. Speaking to Metro News, the Deputy Minister gave residents 2 weeks ultimatum to provide documentations or vacate the land.
The government's pursuit is straightforward, simple and pure. It intends to take back all these lands, and I'm sure no effort will be spared at that. And so I have come to ascertain the facts on the ground. With what I've seen, I'm sending my report to the minister. And as has been done for the other areas, a decision will be made going forward. But certainly, in other areas, they've been asked to stop work, produce some necessary documentation. I don't expect anything different from here.
He, however, expressed disappointment in assemblies for exhibiting failure and weakness in their line on duty.
These assemblies, some of them, to a large extent, have been a huge disappointment. I mean, to hear that almost all the places we've gone, people who have encroached these lands have built without permits. I just can't see how you allow over 100 or 200 buildings to spring up in your locality without buildings, and all you do is to go right, stop work on them. So if people are not complying with the law, what do? There are laws in this country. And to the extent that we stop at just writing on the walls and allow people to, with impunity, take over state lands in the manner that I have seen, very, very sad.
In response to this, the Municipal Chief Executive for Gan West, Clement Nee Wilkinson, expressed fear for the irate residents.
This is a government land, and it's not easy for you to come here because of the dynamics here. If you see people who are building here, and if you see, I don't want to use the word, but you know what I'm talking about. I can't hire police 24/7 to come and fight these people, but I know there's time for everything, and this is the time.
The tour, however, continued to the inspection of some sites and the demolition of a joint for sex workers.
You're still watching Newsbeat here on Metro Television. Up next is Business News. And in business, Minister of Finance Ken Ofori-Atta says the African Continental Free Trade Area, after when fully operational, will help eliminate or reduce trade barriers among the 54 African countries. He therefore urged member states to strengthen their financial institutions to enable them maximize the full benefits of the AfTA. He was speaking at the closing ceremony of the 2022 Ghana Trade Roadshow here in Accra.
African Continental Free Trade Area is widely seen as a crucial driver for economic growth, industrialization, and sustainable development in Africa. The agreement is expected to enhance diversification of industrial products, develop regional value chains, and facilitate regional integration, as well as cross-border payments. Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, during a speech at the 2022 Ghana Trade Roadshow, advised African governments to tap into the immense benefits of the agreement. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta urged member states to strengthen financial institutions to drive economic growth.
The returns on our reserves, because of the state of the global market, it might be a quarter or 3/4 or 1 or 2% at best. But we go out there to borrow money at about 8%. So the fundamental question becomes, why are we not keeping this money on our continent or giving it to the Afri-Exim's or the Africa Development Banks so that we have the balance sheet which can be leveraged to do that? And nobody can answer that question except we take the West's concept of where one must invest things. And of course, Africa is at the bottom of the pyramid. So we ourselves buy into this erroneous belief that we are not creditworthy and give money to them and borrow it and then go on. So those become the challenges that we have to confront and ask ourselves, is this a way to build our land? How can we not have a reserve currency, Africa, with all of this gold and mineral resources that we export?
The Ghana Trade Roadshow is organized by Afrexim Bank and Oakwood Green Africa in collaboration with Ghana Exports Promotion Authority, Ghana Free Zones Authority, and the AfTA Secretariat.
Afrexim Bank is aware of the development priorities of Ghana, and our interventions have been crafted to focus on these priorities. Today, exposure to Ghana exceeds $1 billion, and we have in the pipeline over $2.25 billion that have either been approved or undergoing approval.
You're still watching Newsbeat here. We're taking a break. We'll be back shortly with some more stories. Please stay. Welcome back. Up next is entertainment news. Now, organizers of the Ghana Music Awards UK have launched the 2022 edition at the Labadi Hotel here in Accra. And let's take a look at some of the nominees. For the Hip Life Hip Hop Artist of the Year, Black Sheriff, Amrado, Sako, the D-Black, and Medical have been nominated in there. And for the High Life Song of the Year, Kwame Eugene has been nominated with Tinafi, R2B's A Boss of Family Praise. Also in the High Life Artist of the Year, Kofi Kenata, Sinaso, Akwabwa, Kwame Eugene, Family, Kwabna, and Sister Efia. The Reggae Dancer Artist of the Year, Chatawale, Samini, Episode, Stoneboy, and La Russo. Afrobeat Artist of the Year, the nominees are Kelvin Boy, Sefa, Can Promise, Kidi, Camido, Wendy Shea, Darko Vibes, and Mr. Drew, and several other categories for this year's edition. And the award is set to take place sometime later this year in October. And that's all for entertainment. Up next, we do international news. At least 5 people have died and dozens of others injured after at least 3 earthquakes with a preliminary magnitude of more than 6 hit the province of Hormozgan in southern Iran. 2 of the strongest shocks were registered at magnitude 6.3, but one that inflicted all the casualties is thought to be an initial magnitude of 6.1 quake at a depth of about 10 kilometers below the surface that hit in the early hours of Saturday. At least 30 aftershocks were felt in villages and towns near Bandar Abbas, local officials said, adding that tremors were also felt in the neighboring United Arab Emirates. The quake sent thousands of people into the streets where they spent the rest of the night. Many people are still staying in tents that local authorities and emergency services have set up. And that's all for the news this afternoon. Thank you for joining us. My name is Desmond Okrekudas. We'll be back at 7 with News Tonight. Do enjoy the rest of our programs and have a good afternoon.